Yes, I do work at 4 a.m. as a 10-year-old. It was great. It was my favorite day as a child. Let's go to Rockefeller Center.
Wait, that's right.
A cute 8-year-old boy with blonde hair and big eyes, screaming as he puts aftershave on his face. That scene from Home Alone made millions of people around the world laugh and turned Macaulay Culkin into the most famous child star of the 1990s. But what happened after the cameras stopped rolling? What most people don't know is that behind all those smiles and movie magic was a little boy who was living through his own real-life nightmare. Today, we're going to dive deep into the heartbreaking story of Macaulay Culkin. From his rise to superstardom, to his struggles with family drama, addiction, and trying to find his place in the world as an adult. This isn't just another celebrity story. This is about a kid who had his childhood stolen from him and how he's been fighting to get his life back ever since. Macaulay Carson Culkin was born on August 26, 1980, in New York City. He was the third child in what would become a family of 7 kids. His father, Kit Culkin, was a former child actor himself, who had big dreams, but never quite made it in Hollywood. His mother, Patricia Brentrup, was trying her best to keep the family together. But even from the very beginning, things weren't easy for the Culkin family. The family lived in a tiny, 1-bedroom apartment on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. Can you imagine 7 kids and 2 adults all crammed into 1 bedroom? Macaulay later described how they couldn't even afford doors for privacy. The kids had to hang up blankets just to have some space to themselves. Money was always tight, and Kit Culkin was determined that his children would succeed where he had failed. When Macaulay was just 4 years old, his father pushed him into acting. His very first role was in a stage production called Buck Babies at the New York Philharmonic. Even at that young age, it was clear that Macaulay had something special. He was natural in front of audiences, and he could memorize lines faster than most adults. But what should have been fun for a little kid quickly became work. Kit Culkin wasn't just a father. He became Macaulay's manager, and he was known for being extremely difficult to work with. Directors and producers would later describe Kit as aggressive, demanding, and someone who cared more about money than his son's well-being. Imagine being 4 years old and having your dad push you to work instead of letting you play with toys like other kids. As Macaulay got a few small roles in movies and TV shows, the family's financial situation started to improve a little bit. But the pressure on Macaulay only got worse. His father would make him rehearse for hours and hours, even when he was tired or wanted to do something else. Other kids his age were learning to ride bikes and making friends at school, but Macaulay was learning lines and performing for strangers. Then, in 1990, everything changed. Macaulay auditioned for a movie called Home Alone, where he would play Kevin McAllister, a boy who gets accidentally left behind when his family goes on vacation. The movie was supposed to be a small family comedy, but nobody expected what happened next. Home Alone became one of the biggest movies of all time. It made over $476 million worldwide, and suddenly, 8-year-old Macaulay Culkin was everywhere. His face was on magazine covers, talk shows, and movie posters around the globe. Kids everywhere wanted to be just like Kevin McAllister. Parents thought Macaulay was adorable. Hollywood wanted to give him more and more movie deals. But success came with a price that no 8-year-old should have to pay. Macaulay couldn't go anywhere without being recognized. He couldn't have normal friendships because other kids either treated him like he was special or they were jealous of his fame. He couldn't go to regular school anymore because fans and reporters would show up. His childhood was essentially over before it had really begun. The money started pouring in. Macaulay made $100,000 for Home Alone, which was already a lot for a kid. But when Home Alone 2 came out in 1992, he made over $4 million. Then came movies like The Good Son, Getting Even with Dad, and Richie Rich. By the time he was 14, Macaulay had made more money than most people see in their entire lives. But here's the sad part. He wasn't really enjoying any of it. In interviews years later, Macaulay described feeling like he was just going through the motions. He was working constantly, always surrounded by adults who wanted something from him. His father controlled every aspect of his career and his money. Macaulay felt more like a business than a person. The worst part was what was happening at home. As the money grew, so did the problems between his parents. Kit and Patricia had never been married, and their relationship was falling apart. They fought constantly, often about money and about Macaulay's career. The other 6 Culkin children were also being pushed into acting, but none of them had the same success as Macaulay. This created jealousy and tension within the family. Kit Culkin's behavior got worse and worse. People who worked with the family described him as controlling and sometimes scary. He would scream at directors if he didn't like how they were treating Macaulay. He made demands about money, about how many lines other actors could have, and about how Macaulay should be treated on set. But the ironic thing was that while he was protecting Macaulay from other people, he was the one putting the most pressure on his own son. Macaulay later said that his father saw him as a golden goose, something that could make money for the family. Kit would make Macaulay work even when he was sick or exhausted. There were no real breaks, no time to just be a kid. Every day was about the next audition, the next movie, the next paycheck. By the time Macaulay was in his early teens, he was burnt out. He had been working for almost 10 years, and he was tired of it all. He wanted to go to regular school, make normal friends, and figure out who he was when he wasn't performing. But his father had other plans. Kit wanted Macaulay to keep making movies and keep bringing in money for the family. That's when things really exploded. In the mid-1990s, Macaulay's parents got into a nasty custody battle over all 7 children. But this wasn't just about who the kids would live with. It was also about who would control Macaulay's career and his money. Kit wanted to maintain control, while Patricia wanted to protect her children from the pressure they were under. The custody battle was brutal and played out in the newspapers for everyone to see. Imagine being a teenager and having your family's private problems splashed across magazine covers. Macaulay had to testify in court about his own life, describing how his father's behavior affected him and his siblings. It was traumatic for the entire family. In 1997, when Macaulay was 17, the custody battle finally ended. His mother won, and the children stayed with her. But by this point, the damage was done. Macaulay's relationship with his father was completely destroyed. In a 2025 interview, Culkin revealed that he and his father have not made contact in over 30 years. That's an entire lifetime of not speaking to the man who was supposed to love and protect him. Around the same time, Macaulay made a decision that shocked Hollywood. He was taking a break from acting. At 17, when most actors would be trying to transition from child star to adult actor, Macaulay walked away. He had made enough money to last him the rest of his life, and he was tired of being controlled by other people. But stepping away from the spotlight wasn't as easy as Macaulay thought it would be. He had been famous since he was 8 years old. He didn't know how to be a regular person. He had missed out on so many normal teenage experiences that he didn't even know where to start. Macaulay tried to have a normal life. He attended a private school and tried to make friends with people who knew him as just Macaulay, not as Kevin McAllister. But it was hard. Everywhere he went, people recognized him. Some wanted autographs, some wanted to be his friend just because he was famous, and others treated him like he was weird or different. The early 2000s were a dark time for Macaulay. He was in his early 20s, trying to figure out who he was as an adult. But he was carrying all this baggage from his childhood. He had trust issues because so many people had tried to use him for money or fame. He had never learned how to have normal relationships because his whole life had been about work. During this time, Macaulay started experimenting with drugs and alcohol. This isn't uncommon for former child stars, but it was still heartbreaking to watch. Here was someone who had brought joy to millions of children around the world, and he was struggling just to get through each day. He later admitted that he was trying to numb the pain of everything he had been through. The media wasn't kind to Macaulay during this period. Paparazzi would follow him around, taking pictures of him looking tired or thin, and tabloid magazines would write stories about how the cute kid from Home Alone had gone wrong. But what they didn't understand was that Macaulay wasn't going wrong. He was trying to heal from years of trauma and exploitation. In 2004, Macaulay was arrested for possession of marijuana and other controlled substances. The arrest made headlines around the world, and people were quick to judge him. But what many didn't realize was that this was actually a wake-up call for Macaulay. He realized that he needed to get his life together, not just for himself, but because he wanted to honor the memory of his sister Dakota, who had died in a car accident in 2008. Losing his sister was devastating for Macaulay. Dakota was one of the few people in his life who had loved him just for who he was, not for his fame or his money. Her death made him realize how precious life was and how much time he had already wasted being angry and self-destructive. Slowly, Macaulay started to rebuild his life. He began making selective appearances in movies and TV shows, but only when he wanted to, not because someone was forcing him. He started a comedy website called Bunny Ears, where he could be creative and funny without the pressure of being a traditional movie star. He formed a band called the Pizza Underground, which was weird and quirky but made him happy. One of the most important things that happened to Macaulay was meeting Brenda Song. Brenda was also a former child star, so she understood what Macaulay had been through in ways that most people couldn't. Brenda Song and Macaulay Culkin met on the set of Changeland in 2017, and they quickly became close friends first, then romantic partners. Brenda helped Macaulay see that he could have a normal, loving relationship. She didn't want anything from him except his love and companionship. For the first time in his life, Macaulay felt like he could trust someone completely. They understood each other's struggles with fame, and they both wanted to build a quiet, private life together. Had their first child, Dakota Song Culkin, in April 2021. Macaulay named his son Dakota after his beloved sister who had passed away. Becoming a father changed everything for Macaulay. Suddenly, he had someone to protect and love unconditionally, the way he wished he had been protected as a child. Brenda Song reveals how she and husband Macaulay Culkin have been celebrating Mother's Day with sons Dakota, 3, and Carson, 2. The couple now has 2 young sons, and Macaulay is determined to give them the childhood he ever had. He wants them to play and explore and just be kids without the pressure of performing or making money. Now that he and fiancée, actor Brenda Song, 37, are parents to 2 young sons of their own, Macaulay Culkin is even more shocked by his father's alleged mistreatment of his children. Now that I got kids of my own, it kicks up some dust, and I go, I can't believe he was like that. Having his own children has given Macaulay a new perspective on what his father did to him. He can't imagine treating his own sons the way Kit treated him. Instead, he's focused on being the kind of father he wished he had, someone who puts his children's happiness and well-being above everything else. Today, Macaulay is in his 40s, and he's finally found peace. Macaulay Culkin has a speculated net worth of $18 million in 2024, so he's financially secure. But more importantly, he's emotionally healthy. He has a loving relationship with Brenda, 2 beautiful children, and he's learned to set boundaries with people who want to exploit his fame. Macaulay still acts occasionally, but only in projects that interest him. He's been in American Horror Story, and he's done some voice work and guest appearances, but he's no longer driven by the need to prove himself or make money. He acts because he enjoys it, not because someone is forcing him to. He's also become an advocate for other former child stars. He understands better than most people how difficult it can be to transition from childhood fame to a normal adult life. He's spoken out about the need for better protections for child actors, including laws that prevent parents from taking all of their children's earnings. The story of Macaulay Culkin is both heartbreaking and inspiring. It's heartbreaking because it shows us how a system that was supposed to protect a child instead exploited him for profit. It shows us how fame and money can destroy families and steal childhoods. It reminds us that behind every child star is a real person with real feelings who deserves to be loved and protected. But it's also inspiring because it shows us that it's possible to heal from trauma and build a better life. Macaulay could have let his difficult childhood define him forever. He could have stayed angry and bitter and self-destructive. Instead, he chose to do the hard work of healing. He chose to forgive, not because what happened to him was okay, but because carrying that anger was hurting him more than anyone else. Macaulay's story teaches us important lessons about childhood, fame, and family. It reminds us that children should be protected, not exploited. It shows us that money and fame aren't worth sacrificing a person's well-being. And it proves that with love, support, and determination, it's possible to overcome even the most difficult circumstances. When we watch Home Alone today, we can still laugh at Kevin McAllister's antics, but we can also remember that the little boy who made us laugh was going through his own struggles behind the scenes. We can appreciate not just his talent, but his resilience. We can celebrate not just the movies he made as a child, but the life he's built as an adult. Macaulay Culkin's journey from child star to struggling young adult to happy father and partner shows us that our past doesn't have to determine our future. No matter what we've been through, no matter how lost we might feel, it's always possible to start over and build the life we want. His story also reminds us to be kinder to people in the public eye, especially young people. Behind every celebrity is a human being with feelings, struggles, and dreams. Instead of judging them when they make mistakes or go through difficult times, maybe we can try to understand what they might be going through and offer compassion instead of criticism. Today, Macaulay Culkin is no longer the lonely child who was left home alone. He's found his family, his purpose, and his peace. He's broken the cycle of abuse and exploitation that marked his own childhood, and he's creating a better future for his children. That's not just a Hollywood ending. That's real-life courage and love in action. So the next time you watch Home Alone and see that mischievous 8-year-old defending his house from burglars, remember that the real Macaulay Culkin had to defend himself from much scarier things, and be proud that he won that battle too. If Macaulay's story touched your heart like it touched mine, please give this video a like and share it with someone who needs to hear this message of hope and healing. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories about overcoming life's biggest challenges. And remember, no matter what you're going through, you're not alone, and your story isn't over yet. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.